Hi there, Phil Simborg, USBGF Teaching Pro with a checker play problem. You're red, you have a 3-2 to play. What's your play? Okay, have you decided? If you're like 99% of us, your play is 24, 21, 13, 11. Make this point, get these back checkers moving. Looks like a very reasonable play. Here's the rollout. That very reasonable play is a blunder. It's an 8% error. The right play is to slot the 5-point. Now, I have to admit I had trouble with this play myself. I'm not positive. This was sent to me by one of my students, and after studying it, I certainly got the right play and understood why. But over the board, if I was just playing in a game and this came up, I cannot swear to you that I would have made the right play. I'd like to think I would have. I would like to think I would have taken the time to study it and understand it, but I can't promise you that's true. There's a quiz factor involved when I see a play and make the right play. But I can tell you this honestly, I wasn't sure, and I wasn't completely confident of the play until after I studied it. So now you have found something that is a wonderful gift from Extreme Gammon. You found out that there's something that you don't completely understand. You found a hole in your game. And if you can plug that hole or solve that problem to where you understand it, now you're going to be a better player. So how do you really examine this play to figure out why it's the better play? Well, let me tell you my thinking on it. First of all, what is your game plan? That's always one of the major theories that I use to determine the right play. You are way behind in the race, so racing isn't your game plan. You have a pretty good priming game and hitting game. It's tough to prime one checker, but he is back on the ace point, and you might well be able to get another shot. So that screams for slotting the 5-point, because if he doesn't hit you, you have got an incredibly strong position. If he doesn't roll a 4. You are going to be able, if you get a shot later, it's going to be pretty devastating for him if you've made your 5-point. And if he doesn't roll a 6 and you end up making the bar point, or he just never rolls a 6, your priming game is a very exciting game. So either of those two game plans really work well. What's the downside? Of course the downside is if he rolls a 4. Well, first of all, let's keep in mind that he's got a couple of good 4s on his side of the board, particularly 4-2 works very well, and 6-4 works very well, and so you're duplicating some of his good numbers by making that play. Now, let's look at it from another standpoint. When you split, what are you doing to him? He's got 2 very highly stacked points, and just as a general principle, we know that splitting in front of stacked points can often hurt you. He can point on you with a 4-2, a double 2, or a double 4. He can double hit with a 3-2 and unstack. He can hit you with a, I don't think he would hit with a 5-3. He's way too much up in the race with a 5-3. Probably just play quietly. And also with a 6-2, he would play quietly because, again, his game plan being up this many pips is to race. But if he has a number where he can't race, he can efficiently unstack these numbers, so splitting has a downside also. How can we really understand a position like this? Well, one of the things I've always recommended is you save the position or hit Control-C, which puts it into your puts it on your clipboard, and then you can hit Control-V and replace it after you played around with it. But let's look at one other thing first. What's the downside? We looked at it. If you get hit with a 4, you're not happy, but if you get hit with a 4, you can come in and hit back with a 1, 3, or 6. You're likely to get into a hitting exchange. And getting into a hitting exchange when you have 3 board points and he has 2 is not a bad thing. It's not too terrible. Getting a third checker back isn't such a horrible thing in this position because you're already pretty well cooked in the race anyway, and a third checker back might actually be good. You can roll a 4-3 or a 5-4 and make an advanced anchor, still have a checker back here to catch any straggler that might try to come behind you. And so it's really not that bad to have 3 checkers back on the downside. But what's the upside? Let's take a look at this play. If you don't get hit, the upside is huge. Now let's take a look at the upside of this play. We already talked about the downsides of having these split in front of strip points, but What's the downside of this play? The downside of this play is that after, let's say you're successful, so let's say he doesn't point on you and doesn't do anything spectacular, how good a game do you have? You really don't have that much of a game. Let's take a look at this play again. Did I mention the 6-1? 6-1 hits you here, and of course he would. We forgot about that, but look what a 6-1 does if you don't make that play. It makes his 5-point. So you've duplicated a very, very fine roll for him with this play. So bottom line is there's more upside to this play. The downside isn't that terrible. There is very little upside to this play, and the downside is not real great either if things go badly. So you're always looking at risk and reward on these plays to try and understand them. But another way to understand these plays is to change the play a little bit, change the position a little bit. If this wasn't so stacked, maybe it would be right to split. Again, let's see. Let's hit Control C, and let's see if this isn't so stacked. Let's say he's got a checker here and this checker here. Let's look at this position. Look at that. The split becomes right. You're not splitting in front of horribly stacked points. Also, the race is a little bit better now. The position is different. Now think about how and why this really changed the play that much. To go from an 8% error to go one way, it's like a 12% swing to go 4% in favor of this play when you moved these checkers the way I just moved them. So that's one way to study a position. Let's go back to the original position. I'm going to hit Control V, put the original position back in, and now there's another way to study this play. My teaching partner, David Rockwell, who is one of the finest analysts in the game, he's also a very, very fine player, but he's a great analyst. He knows how to study games and how to break them apart and how to learn them. That's one of the reasons why David is an expert at so many games, not just backgammon. He's a fantastic Othello player, chess player, and there's a couple other games I can't even pronounce that he's really good at. But David suggested another strategy. To really understand this position and what your game plan is and what's going on, look at every possible roll and see how you would play it. Change the roll to a double 1. See how you would play double 1. Then play a 1-2, then a 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6. Now go to the 2s. See how you play out every roll. Think about what's the right play, what's the right game plan, what's the pluses and minuses. Hit the button and find out if you're right. When you're wrong, think about it some more and figure out what the reason is that you're wrong. And go through every possible roll. And by the end of that exercise, you might have a much better understanding of why your game plan here is not running and why your game plan here is to get into a hitting battle or possibly a priming game, and why the best way to do that is to slot this point. So I hope this helped. I hope you found this interesting. If you got the right play from the beginning, congratulations. I think that proves you're a pretty good player and have a very good understanding of the game. Or be honest, was it the quiz factor? Would you have really made the right play over the board if I hadn't shown this to you as a problem and it just popped up? Or would, like most people, would you play 24, 21, 13, 11? If that's the case, even if you got it right after thinking about it, then do you really fully understand the position? One last question. Is it worth all this time and trouble to study one mistake? We make so many mistakes. If you're like me, you could stop yourself on 100 different positions a week where you made a mistake. And why are you making 100 mistakes a week? Because when you made the same kind of mistake once before, you didn't take the time to solve the problem, to plug the hole. By going through all this effort, next week you're only going to make 99 mistakes or 98 mistakes. In fact, the lesson that you learn from this position won't just apply to this position and ones that are very close to it. It'll apply to a lot of other positions where the same principles are involved. So it's learning the concepts, learning the principles that are going to make you a better player and make them stick. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.